On February 12th, 1692, Cotton Mather turned 29. He was the minister of Boston's North Church, and you may know that he had some influence in the Salem Witch Trials. And on his 29th birthday, he began a new journal volume in which he expressed his desire to see a reformation in the churches and an easier path to church membership for his own flock. Welcome to Salem Witch Trials Daily. I'm Josh Hutchinson.
Hi, I'm Sarah Jack. Today we're looking at the Salem Witch Trials from a bird's eye view. We're talking about geography. We often focus on the who and the why, but the where of 1692 is just as critical to understanding how this tragedy unfolded.
When we think of Salem, we often conflate two very different places. There was Salem Town, the bustling cosmopolitan port, and Salem Village, the agrarian farming community, roughly 5 miles inland.
Ben Wiki, the author of the graphic novel More Weight, described this contrast perfectly to us on our podcast. He noted that the examinations started in the rustic, rural Salem Village meeting house, but once the court of Oyer and Terminer was established in June, the proceedings moved to Salem Town.
He described the town as opulent and mercantile. It was a sophisticated setting for what became a horrific series of trials. And this geography mattered. The village was, in many ways, the beating heart of the Puritan hegemony that felt it was in decline, while the town represented a changing, more commercial future.
And speaking of the village, there's a common misconception that the afflicted girls were all next-door neighbors constantly hanging out in each other's kitchens and yards. The historian Marilyn K. Roach, who has meticulously mapped the area, told us that simply wasn't the case. Marilyn has been a guest on our podcast, The Thing About Witch Hunts, twice, speaking with us most recently about the geography of the Salem Witch Trials. You'll enjoy that episode, which we've linked in the show notes. Studying Salem from this geography lens is so insightful.
While Betty Paris and Abigail Williams lived in the parsonage in the center of town, the other accusers were spread out. Ann Putnam Jr. lived miles to the west in what is now Middleton. Elizabeth Hubbard lived miles to the east on the Beverly line.
They weren't neighbors in the modern sense. They likely knew each other from Sunday meetings at the church, but the geography suggests that this wasn't just a single neighborhood clique plotting together. It was a phenomenon that spanned miles of farmland.
The accusations didn't stop at the village borders. The geography of the witch hunt expanded rapidly. We know that accusations spread to 25 different communities, stretching from Boston in the south all the way north to Wells, Maine.
Maine is a critical piece of this geographical puzzle. As author Mary Beth Norton and others have pointed out, the frontier war with the Wabanaki Confederacy was raging in Maine. That trauma and fear migrated south into Essex County with the refugees.
Exactly. And the law reached north. Former Salem Village minister George Burroughs was arrested at his home in Wells, Maine, and taken back to Salem to face trial.
But while we call it the Salem Witch Hunt, we have to talk about Andover. Geographically, Andover is just north of Salem Village, and as historian Richard Hyde explained to us, Andover actually saw the highest number of accusations of any town, about 45 people.
Which is staggering. And the spread to Andover was physical. It happened because a man named Joseph Ballard invited the afflicted girls from Salem Village to come up to Andover to diagnose his sick wife. The accusers literally traveled up the road, bringing the panic with them.
Geography also played a role in the types of disputes that led to the accusations. We often hear about land lust or boundary disputes. In the 17th century, property lines were defined by things like trees and rock piles, which led to constant friction between neighbors.
It is important to note, as Richard Height clarified, that the government did not seize the land of those executed. The heirs still inherited the property. So while land disputes created the anger that often fueled accusations by triggering quarrels, which, as we discussed the other day, quarrels followed by some kind of misfortune would lead to accusations. And the trials, they were not a government land grab scheme.
Finally, we have to look at the geography of the executions themselves.
Thanks to the work of the Gallows Hill Project, including Marilyn Roach and Emerson Baker, we now know it was not the summit of Gallows Hill. Using viewshed analysis, determining what could be seen from specific houses in 1692, they confirmed the site was a lower rocky ledge known as Proctor's Ledge.
It's a reminder that these events happened in a real, physical space. They weren't just stories, they were neighbors walking miles to church, judges riding horses in the rain from Salem town, and carts carrying the condemned to a specific rocky ledge.
Understanding the map of 1692 helps us understand the reality of the tragedy.